Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for attending the third of our Million Cat Challenge mini Webby series that we will bringing you every Thursday at noon Pacific Standard Time all the way through November 1st. Before we kick off this third Webby, I just want to take a moment to, as always, thank Maddie's Fund for giving us both the support and the platform to be here today. Thank you so much, Maddie's. In effort to stay on time today and be respectful of your lunch or snack hour, we will be collecting all of the questions until the end, but that doesn't mean you should hold them until the end. Please, as you think of questions, send them on through. We're queuing them up. We won't interrupt the presenter. We'll let her get all the way through, and then we'll ask them all at the same time. So feel free to send those anytime you think of it. Today's mini Webby is all about keeping cats that have another option out of the shelter. And bringing us this story today is Monica Frenden. She's the Maddie's Director of Feline Lifesaving at Austin Pets Alive. Hello, best title ever. Monica got her start when she noticed a stark lack of resources for community cats in rural Illinois, and she decided to do something about it. In 2008, she founded a trap, neuter, return organization that sterilized thousands of cats. To further reduce euthanasia, she pioneered one of the nation's first and largest barn cat programs. In 2012, Monica moved to Texas and joined Austin Pets Alive, where she serves as Community Cat Program Manager. Since 2012, Monica has led her team to an 80% growth in cat adoptions, helped Austin achieve a citywide 99% live release rate for cats, and oversees the adoption and care of nearly 4,000 cats each year. Her passion for improving the country's sheltering systems and for cats and the love of sassy cats helps save even the most challenging of felines. Monica, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And of course, I want to thank Maddie's Fund again. And I want to also thank the Million Cat Challenge for having us and putting on these webinars. Before we dive into it, I want to make a plea for everyone who's out there listening, and thank you for joining us, to make sure you are signed up with Million Cat Challenge. And I'm also going to kind of challenge you all to encourage your partner shelters to sign up for Million Cat Challenge. It is an amazing initiative backed by Maddie's Fund dedicated to helping save shelter cats in this country, and I can't say enough good things about it, so make sure you are signed up for Million Cat Challenge. And so with that, let's dive into keeping cats out of shelters. We're going to talk about two programs that we have at Austin Pets Alive that help keep cats out of shelters. The first one we're going to talk about is our PASS program, and PASS stands for Positive Alternatives to Shelter Surrender. And back when Austin Pets Alive was first starting out in Austin, this was a diversion program that was run in person at our municipal animal control facility. And it was all volunteer run. And what we would essentially do is set up a desk at municipal open admission animal control. And basically, if you were there to surrender an animal, you had to get through us first. And so we were there with volunteers to provide community resources to help prevent shelter surrenders to the municipal shelter. And that is still a really, really good tool to use if you want to set up such a station at your municipal animal control and work with them for a diversion program. Now in the position that Austin is in, the Municipal Animal Center has a great community resource center that operates as their own diversion program. So our own PASS program has been able to kind of evolve into what the community needs, and it still operates as an intake diversion program, but now it's run largely virtually. So we're not in person at the animal shelter any longer, but it's pretty virtual. It's run online and by phone, and it's almost entirely volunteer run. And what we focus on are community-based solutions to keep cats in their homes or from entering a shelter when they have some other options. So some of the initiatives that the PASS program works on now are crowdsourced financial solutions. So we all know those cats who would otherwise be surrendered to a shelter because their owner is having some sort of financial difficulty in keeping them. One of those looks like emergency medical fund fundraisers that we will start, and we'll crowdsource them. So chip-ins or GoFundMes for people who need medical help to keep their cat or dog in their home. This is an example, a photo right here of a kitty who needed to have a lung removed, and the owner couldn't afford that care. We were able to crowdsource that medical fund to get that kitty the surgery that he needed and keep him in his home. The last thing that any of us want is another cat with medical conditions coming into our shelter. So if we can help the owner come up with those solutions themselves, it's also a better financial investment for us to do that than to take the cat in. And then we also crowdsource financial solutions for pet deposits. So again, there's a lot of people who want to keep their pet, but they can't if they can't come up with a pet deposit if they're moving. And usually those are only at $200–300 or so, at least in the Austin area. And so for us, it's easy to crowdsource that financial solution to say, hey, this adopter loves her cat. She doesn't want to get rid of her cat, but she cannot afford the deposit to move into her new apartment. Can we crowdsource and fundraise so she can keep her cat? And so not only is it a more humane solution of keeping the cat in its home where it has an owner that loves it, but if you think about the cost that your shelter incurs to take in every animal, it's often more than what a pet deposit would cost. So not only is it a humane solution, but it's a very practical one at that. The other things that the PASS program will work on are providing tools to eliminate surrender. And that can look like food and supplies when someone can't afford that. And we'll also lend those food and supplies in the ways of community food banks to our community cat caretakers, because of course we recognize that community cats need resources and they need our support as well to stay out of shelters. We're going to provide pet-friendly rental advice. So if you need to move somewhere and you've got some pets and you're having trouble finding pet-friendly rentals, we maintain a list of all the complexes and landlords in our area that are pet-friendly, so we can help connect those pet owners with pet-friendly rentals. We're also maintaining a list of temporary boarding opportunities. So we get a lot of folks who are either moving or they're temporarily displaced. They don't want to give their pets up, but they just need a place for that pet to go temporarily. And so we work with a lot of boarding facilities or even veterinary clinics who will provide free temporary boarding for some of those cats. And sometimes that also looks like a domestic abuse situation where someone needs a temporary safe spot to board or foster their pet so that they can leave their abuser. And we will work with those facilities to ask them to pro bono donate those services. Or we can also post online and ask if we can have a temporary foster from the community step up to help that animal so that that person can leave their situation and knowing that their animal is safe. And then another resource we provide is, of course, referrals to free or low-cost services in the community, particularly for people needing low-cost veterinary care or vaccines or spay-neuter. If those options fail and if someone absolutely needs to rehome their pet, this is an initiative that the PASS program also helps with. Sometimes it's needing to rehome your personal pet, or sometimes it's a pet you found outside and that you're being a good Sam and helping. Like this image on this screen shows, this was a stray kitten that someone found and is trying to find a good loving home for. In those instances, our PASS program will provide you with rehoming assistance by means of telling you how to responsibly and safely rehome your pet yourself. We can make a post for you and post that on our PASS social media pages that get that pet some more marketing and foot traffic. And if those things fail and we can't help you keep your pet and we can't help you rehome the pet yourself, we're going to provide referrals to rescue or managed intake solutions when shelter surrender is absolutely inevitable. So we want to give you tools so that you can do that as humanely as possible and with the least amount of hardship being placed on the rescue community so they can get in when you have room. This is really a community-driven program. I can't emphasize that enough. These are partnerships between boarding facilities and behavior specialists and medical providers, Health and Human Services divisions of local government. So we work a lot with like Meals on Wheels and Health and Human Service programs. And this is also a partnership between caring citizens. So a lot of the times our PASS program will present an issue and we give it back to the community to help them crowdsource a solution. And one of the most memorable instances of that I can remember was a retiree who had just a really difficult behavior cat. And he was just a whole lot of cat and needed a job to do. And he was causing havoc in his home because he lived with an older person. He was kind of getting underfoot and causing her some stress. And she was looking at having to rehome this cat, which was, again, the last thing that any of us need is another problem behavior cat in our care. We sought her help for a free behavior consult, and the behaviorist recommended that the cat get a catio. So he got some outdoor time to relieve some of that energy that these young cats often have. An adopter was keen on that, except she didn't have the funds necessary to build a catio. And so we posted the situation to our past social media, and within about 48 hours, we had a group of people who offered to show up and build this lady a catio on her property. And they did so, and basically the cat is still in home over a year later, and everyone lived happily ever after. So this really is a community-based program that harnesses the power of caring citizens in your community. And our motto at Austin Pets Alive is helping people help pets. And so this is really just a perfect example of that motto and how you can rely on the community to kind of come to your aid in those situations. Some of our data on the PASS program, we get about 700 inquiries a month to the PASS program. And last year we provided 98 emergency boarding opportunities for people who needed temporary boarding. We raised 17 pet deposits, and 310 pets were rehomed through our marketing and network. So those are essentially tons and tons of cats and dogs that we've kept out of shelter intake and helped keep those animals in their home, which is, of course, always our goal. So great volunteer program that you can consider. The next topic I want to move on to is our cat behavior program at Austin Pets Alive. And the mission of this program, which you can read here, is basically to keep adoptive cats in their homes by helping people work through any behavior issues that they may experience. And I can't overemphasize enough how needed cat behavior programs are in the sheltering industry. Lots of us have dog behavior programs at our shelters, but few of us have cat behavior programs. And there's some really great statistics on why we need cat behavior programs so badly. And there's a great study by Dr. Emily Weiss where she cites that 34% of people who rehomed a cat said that low-cost training or behavior help could have prevented their shelter surrender. So that's a huge number, and we really need to pay attention to it. And I'm going to tell you how our cat behavior team works in the way that we help prevent surrenders and keep cats in their homes. This is an entirely volunteer-run team, entirely volunteer. And it offers free lifelong behavior assistance to adopters. And it also offers support to fosters and the community at large. So if you're having a problem with your cat, even if you're not an APA adopter, we want to help you work through that behavior problem to prevent the shelter surrender. And this cat featured here was a cat named Batman, who our team worked with. And he was also just a cat with way too much energy that we helped get him some outdoor time, some safe outdoor time. You can see he's got his harness on to keep him in his home, and it's been 2 years, and Batman is still in his forever home. So the team works through 7 volunteers. 1 volunteer takes every day of the week, and they handle all inquiries that come in that day. It's all email and phone based, and we do offer in-person referrals, but it's all email and phone, and so what that means is you can have volunteers on your team that operate from anywhere in the world. And these do not have to be professional cat behaviorists. These can be people that just are cat savvy and know how to answer some basic questions. This runs through a Google group, and our volunteers have access to it. And so folks can email our cat behavior team, and everyone on our group can see those inquiries and get back to folks. And this picture up here is our current Google group, and it just shows you some of the issues that we're getting on a daily basis. Look like very common issues that I'm sure you're all seeing in your shelters. The most common inquiries we get, the biggest one that we get to the behavior team is what I call single kitten syndrome or single kittenitis. And these are, of course, folks that adopt one single kitten, a young kitten, and the kitten starts acting demonic and, of course, keeping them up all night and doing all the things that we know that single kittens do. The next largest inquiry we get is inappropriate elimination, introduction to resident pets, shyness and socialization, scratching and biting, and pica or eating things that the cat should not be. Those are our most common inquiries. And so this is a great example to show you that you don't really have to be a professional behaviorist to work on the behavior team. Most of us listening to this webinar could probably get back to folks and offer them some practical advice on any of those issues. Our goal is to get back to folks who inquire to us within 24 hours. The good news is that personalized canned responses handle 90% of our inquiries. So it's the same kind of questions over and over again. We don't have to create a custom response to every single one of them. If we don't have a canned response for your situation, though, your cat is really doing something unusual, we're going to ask you pointed, direct questions to really determine the root issue of why your cat is behaving a certain way. We believe in positive reinforcement only, and we offer a lot of education on why cats behave in certain ways. So cat behavior really lags behind dog behavior in terms of science and what we know. And so a lot of what we do is tons of education on really why your cat is urinating outside the box. It's not because cat is spiteful or trying to get back at you. We really need to come a long way in terms of educating people on cat behavior. And so our team spends a lot of time doing that. And of course, we spend a lot of time referring people to veterinarians for possible medical conditions like urinary tract infections. The data from this team is really, I'm super proud of it. So we get about 500 inquiries a year, and only 5% of adopters who contact our behavior team end up returning their cat. That's a huge number for me. That means that possibly we've stopped about 95% of people from returning their cat. And we've done so on a completely volunteer team that has no cost to Austin Pets Live and is advertised as an adoption benefit. And the success of this team we can also point to in our cat return rate, which is 5.7% as of last year, which is very low for industry standard. And I can 100% guarantee you that it's because we have a behavior team who is free helping people keep pets in their home. And the photo, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the photo on this slide is of the notorious cat named Beeps, who was a long-stay cat with Austin Pets Alive. And she is every bit as naughty as she looks in that photo, and that photo was from her Christmas card last year that her adopter sent us. So she's a great example of our cat behavior team successes. So with that, we're right at 15 minutes. I want to pass this over to Christy, who is going to handle some questions from the audience, and we'll do our best to knock those out and get you guys back to your workday.
Thank you, Monica. That picture is cracking me up.
Great.
Beeps is adorable. I love this presentation. I love so many things about it, and really just encouraging and making space for the community to make that safety net that we talk about. That Catio story is so sweet. And I especially love the PASS program and the fact that you give volunteers who want to do something outside of the shelter an opportunity to really volunteer on steroids. So many great things happening. But before we jump into questions, I have one. It looks like the questions that the volunteers are fielding are things that probably everybody can get educated about really quickly if they don't already know. But in general, how long does it take a volunteer to get trained up and to be able to join the Google group and be on these teams?
It doesn't take too long at all. We have really good success rate finding volunteers for this team because really anybody who is cat savvy, certainly your experienced fosters or volunteers or just even people who've owned cats most of their life, know the answers to these basic questions. And we do provide training manuals, and we do give them the tools for success, our volunteers. But you don't have to be Jackson Galaxy to help people resolve their cat behavior issues. And because it's a team, if someone does get stuck saying, I really don't know the answer to this, it's a team and they can go to their other team members and say, hey, have any of you ever heard of this? Or, you know, cat is doing something wacky and I don't know what to tell people. It's a team so we can you know, collaborate on it. But in general, it doesn't take too terribly long to get well-versed. There's a wealth of cat behavior information available freely online now. Maddie's Fund has several webinars and opportunities where you can go, you know, cat university and learn about cat body language, and you can really kind of dive into some online training on this. You may also reach out to some professional behaviorists in your community and see if they would like to be involved in this initiative.
That's so cool. And I bet you it's just such a rewarding experience. The volunteers are really sticking around. And to be able to make that promise to every adopter, hey, if something goes wrong, we've got you. I just love it. All right, here we go. So our first question is from Miss Sherry, and she says, do you have any statistical data on reasons for surrender? I realize this is different for every facility, but our local municipal shelters are open to mission and do not track data. I would like to implement some programs for intake diversion via our new 501c3, but I can't afford to cover all the reasons right now. So borrowed data might direct us to a good place to focus our initial efforts. Thank you.
Yeah, there is two things here. So the first is that I highly recommend you at your shelter start tracking your returns. And that will look like you should be tracking the cause of return and break it down into 10 or 12 kind of bulk reasons. So financial or moving or allergies, you know, behavior of the cat, aggression, break it down into big chunks, but track the return reason for every single cat return you get. I also track at Austin Pets Alive by adoption counselor and by length of stay in home before cat was returned. And that does a couple of things. I can know, hey, as an adoption counselor, if 90% of the cats she has adopting out are coming back, I know I have a training issue with my staff that I need to address. But it also tells me this is why the bulk of our cats are coming back. And so when I first started at APA, for example, we were spending like 10 minutes during the adoption process talking about toxoplasmosis and how to keep your cats in home if you were pregnant. And our return data, when I started tracking it, showed me that one cat in a year got returned because someone was pregnant. So from that, I was able to glean, okay, we don't need to be wasting any more time talking about toxoplasmosis at time of adoption, but I can show you that our number one cause of cat returns is moving. So we need to spend more time during counseling talking to people about how to take your pet with you if you are forced to move, and forget about talking about toxoplasmosis. So really track your data. Track your data and see why your shelter cats are being returned so that you can solve the problem now that you've identified what the problem really is. And secondly, there's a ton of great information online about why pets are returned. The best study that comes to mind is the one I had cited earlier. It's by Dr. Emily Weiss, and it's called From Goodbye to Good Friend, Exploration of Rehoming of Cats and Dogs in the U.S. And it's available online, Dr. Emily Weiss. And what I know offhand from our cat behavior team is the most common cause for rehoming pets is a pet problem. So that means there's something wrong with the pet that drives people to return the animal. And I know because I've got the study open right in front of me that aggression is 35% of that and destruction is 29%, and that's the same figures whether it's cat or dog. So we know that the biggest cause of shelter return is problem with the pet or perceived problem with the pet. But the good news is you can find lots of that information online, and if you look at that Dr. Emily Weiss study, that'll get you in a good place to start.
Such a good resource. Thank you for mentioning it. So how many categories are you suggesting that we track, just so it gives people an idea? Are there 12 categories or really 5 big ones?
No, I usually do about 12 categories, and it'll be health of the animal, health or death of adopter, lifestyle, and so that usually means like I got divorced, can't keep cat, financial, moving, allergies, aggression, and then we have something that's just called unrealistic expectations. So you took a cat home and you just really had no idea what a cat was, and you returned it because the cat was acting like a cat.
Meowing.
But we can break it down we break it down into about 10 or 12 big chunks. I don't want to get more specific than that. I want to keep a nice overarching kind of meta-analysis of where we need to focus more during counseling or less during counseling.
Great advice. Thank you. Laura is asking the question I was just about to ask. Would you be willing to provide those canned responses for those of us listening who can potentially utilize it if we implement a behavior program like this? Not to put you on the spot, but can we steal your scripts?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, if you would all go to Maddie's lifesavingacademy.org and click on the resources section, you will find all sorts of protocols and policies from Awesome Pets Alive that are free resources for you to download. And I believe that our canned responses from the behavior team are on there. I believe our cat behavior team training manual is online. If they're not, I will get them online within the next 48 hours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next question, does PASS still have a person who goes to home to see the situation in person?
No, PASS does not have people who do, I think you're asking if there's like home checks or whatnot. No, we don't have a person who will go out and do in-person rescue or in-person home visits. We will again divert that back to a community resource.
Wonderful. So next question is, what do you do to publicize your PASS resources to the community? It seems that the people most likely to need it are the hardest to reach. It's such a good question.
Yeah, our PASS program is listed prominently on our website. So if this is you need pet help, the first place we're going to direct you is our PASS program. So if you reach out to us and, hey, I need to surrender my cat, we're going to first put you in contact with the PASS program. And the PASS program is basically going to be your first point of contact with Awesome Pets Alive if you're trying to surrender a pet or you found a pet outside that you're trying to help. Our PASS program is your very first point of contact. So they are intercepting all of those messages. And that information is available on our website. And if you manage to kind of get around it and you email someone else at the organization, we're going to bounce that back to the PASS program. It's also, we work closely with our municipal shelter to make sure that they are aware that we offer resources. So if they get contacted for shelter surrender and we offer a resource that they don't, they can kick it back to us. Again, this is all about community involvement, getting the word out in the community that this is a resource. We want people to be aware of it. We want people to utilize it. And so any way that you can market it and get it out there, but make sure it's your first point of contact for people who contact your organization looking to surrender a pet.
Shelter. Oh, that's fantastic. What are your suggestions for helping to locate temporary foster situations for members of the public without liability to the shelter?
So without liability to the shelter is a great question. And when we are doing temporary boarding through the programs or temporary fostering, it is a relationship, a private relationship between the temporary foster parent and the pet adopter. Austin Pets Alive does not accept involvement with it. We will say, hey, we found a person who is willing to foster your pet. You get into contact with them and make those arrangements. We are not going to accept liability. We're not going to oversee the process. I've provided you a resource. It's up to you, the adopter, now take that resource and run with it. So we are kind of making the connections, but we are not managing those private relationships. So we're very clear that this is a private relationship between temporary foster that we found and you, the owner of the pet. And we take no liability. We take no responsibility for that. We've simply provided the tools for people to resolve their pet situation themselves.
Oh, such a good model. You save all that time and resources getting into the details, and you're just helping make connections and moving on and letting people provide the safety net.
Exactly. It's all about helping people help pets.
Helping people help pets. For persons who want to start a program like this, your slides are like a blueprint to do it. What a compliment. Are the slides available?
Yes. I'm sure that
can we have them?
Arrange for Maddie to make that possible. I'm sure that that is within their capabilities. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. If you're willing to share them, then we will put them out in the next newsletter with the link to this presentation.
Wonderful.
Which, speaking of, we are right on time. We have 3 minutes left, so if there are no other questions, we're going to sign off. Monica, thank you so much. So much good information packed in such a quick presentation. Incredibly valuable. Thanks for sharing everything.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my honor.
Oh, and I'm getting a note from Allison. Silly me, I forgot. The slides are available in the green widget in the corner. Thank you, Allison. I completely forgot they're there. While you're down there in that green widget, that's also where you sign up for the next webinars that are coming around the bend. Remember, we're doing this every Thursday at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time until November 1st, except for next week. There's one slight change. Next week, we're doing it at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So a little change there, but all that information is in the green widget in the bottom of your screen. Please swing over there. Thank you again for taking the time to spend your lunch with us. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Maddie, for being here. And everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Keep cats that don't belong in the shelter out of the shelter. Build those safety nets. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.